Black African thinkers who taught the Greeks and the Romans, as well as the Persians and Arabs, white Arabs, were and are and remain the greatest sellouts. The greatest sellouts. Now, for us to understand the source of all books or book-based religions, it is quite clear that one must obviously study and understand the practice of African traditional culture or African primitive village culture. Because without understanding the cultural mentality of the black Bantu or black African, one is likely to either misunderstand scripture or misunderstand the origins of scripture. Now, there are key true African spiritual identities that form the tapestry upon which scripture has been weaved from or copied from. And its lowest common denominator is that one and single African philosophy of life that we will identify and that we will show in this talk today. I will deal with a few of the leading blocks or academic blocks that we must engage in to understand this African philosophy. But before I do that, it is pertinent for us to ask a number of questions. Is there a direct connection between the Bantus of Southern Africa and hieroglyphics in ancient Egypt? The answer is yes. There is a direct connection between the two. Why or how? Because it was created by the same people scattered all over in Africa today. Is there a direct connection between the Hebrew Torah, the New Testament, and the Quran with ancient Egyptian mysteries? The answer is yes. There is. How do we know that? Because all of these books were plagiarized and copied from these ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics by the black African thinkers who taught the Greeks, the Romans, the Persians, and white Arabs who sold out. So, since we have proved that this is the truth, we want to ask one of the phenomena that has puzzled a lot of thinkers is that the Bantus carry animal or nature totems. And when you study this, you find that in one of the chapters of the Old Testament, you will find that these totems, these animals, are completely connected and completely elaborated. Here is the question: if you are a Bantu, do you have a totem? What is your totem? What is your tribe? Where do you come from? What is your spiritual identity? How is your totem connected to your spirituality? I want to deal with this issue of totems. I once dealt with it, but I want to at least look at it. The Torah, we know, was borrowed directly from ancient Egyptian mysteries, also known as Bantu philosophy or Bantu mysteries. First, the most common of all senses, who tell you that if you study the Bible, the Old Testament, you will find that the history given in the Torah tells you directly that the ancient Hebrews or Israelites or the descendants of Jacob lived in a place called Goreshu or Goshen in Egypt. And they moved from that place to another place controlled by Egypt called Canaan or Philistine or Palestine. So, yes, these people are connected. Don't worry about Abraham, that he came from the Ur of Chaldea. It was still a country controlled and run by Nimrod, who was a Cushite, whose father or ancestor came from Southern Africa, right there in Sudan, or so-called Sudan today, anciently called Ethiopia. We also know from the Torah that there is a connection between the Torah and ancient hieroglyphics. It is impossible for this connection not to exist. Why? Because Moses was educated in Egypt, learned all Egyptian magic. He was an Egyptian. He was called an Egyptian many, many times in the Bible. If you study Acts 7, verse 22, you find that he is we are told, that's where we are told that he learned all the wisdom of Egypt, which means he learned the mysteries, some of which we are deciphering on this chart. We also know that Joseph married Asnat, we don't drink, a daughter of the high priest of Putu Phera. You find it in Genesis. And they had 2 sons who became great progenitors of the tribe of Israel, or within Israel, whose totem is the buffalo or the unicorn. Now, their sons were Manasseh and Wafarahama, or Ephraim and Manasseh. All these Hebrew tribes have something to do with a place called Dendera or Dendera in Africa, because of what they carry as their tribal totems. So Christian scholars could be split into 2 groups. There are blind followers who are scholars, who go to theological college, learn their craft, and go back and teach in churches what they are told and guided to do. And there are also Christian leaders who know the truth, and then they keep quiet because politically it is incorrect for them to stand up and to teach the true source of the Bible, or the true source of the Torah, or the true source of the Quran. So when the leadership of the early church passed from the academicians of Athens who had learned in Egypt, who had come to Egypt to learn, and passed on to the Romans who were not civilized or learned, something happened within Christianity. Something happened that has changed the thrust of Christian ideology. Therefore, you find that today, the Christian theology that is handed down across ages, even up to today, is the crudest, least rational intellectually of all conscious, inspiring teaching on earth. It is also a religion of the mass followers and the leader and the followers that lead them. So you see, one of the greatest black Jew scholar, Philo Judea, and some of his colleagues like Origen and Clemens, as well as St. Augustine, all these were African scholars, had declared that the scripture which was now being used by the masses shielded or hid or was the outer garment of something that was huge and something that had a great profundity full of meaning. So Philo Judeas specified 4 systems of understanding scripture, because he said you must understand the African tapestry and you must understand at a number of levels. The first one is the literal or physical, followed by the second one, which is the moral or emotional. I'll come back to these 2. And then the allegorical, which is the mental or the reasoning, as well as the last one, the anagogical, which is the lofty or the high spirit. Now, a human being is split into 2, physical and spirit. I will come to that when I deal with the Bantu, or with the term Bantu. So we are physical as well as emotional, moral human beings. Therefore, these are the only 2 levels at which Christian or Christianity or majority of Christians operate. They read the scripture and they take everything literally and physically. And they include the moral or the emotional aspect. And they stop there. That's why in church there is a lot of emotional. Watch Pentecostal pastors, evangelical pastors, they put a lot of emotional. Today, with the PA systems and the musical instruments, that is a lot, and a lot is happening. So you find that Christianity, Islam, Judaism have discarded the allegorical teachings as well as the anagogical teaching, and they hold on to physical or literal as well as emotional. Even on moral issues, they are also bamboozled and pushed aside here and there by the spirit of relativity that is based on Einsteinian teaching that everything is relative. There is neither wrong nor right. Now let me retrack and tie in a little bit of our loose ends here. let us go back to the process of rediscovering the true African spiritual identity, and let us look briefly at the picture painted by the book of Genesis in chapter 49. Now, there are 4 great ancient spiritual sciences that have fallen off today, or that have been deliberately pushed aside today. And these are the ancestor reverence science, the science of symbolism, alchemy, and astrological understanding. All these have been pushed aside, yet these are vital and these are critical areas that enhances personal study to boost personal spiritual growth. The last astrology has been thoroughly debased today because of the discarding of the flat earth dome shape type of understanding that the ancients had concerning the structure and the shape of the earth. Modern astronomy has continuously bombarded the masses, giving us a global spherical earth which is not supportable biblically. Now, when we do study scripture using all these 2 systems, the Philo-Judea system, as well as putting into harness the astrological aspect of everything, we come to understand that we, as human beings, have to do scripture and have to restore it back to its original purpose, which is simply the Bantu mystery, which is used to guide the soul. There are terms that are connected with the Bantu, Banu, Anu, Muntu, Ubuntu, and also the philosophy called Ubuntu. I'll come to that and I will explain that. So you see that the black person can grasp scripture at all levels if he decides to do that. How can that be possible? First and foremost, consider Genesis chapter 49. I want to go through it slowly so that I can show the 4 levels of interpreting or understanding scripture, as well as connecting the lost sciences, the 4 lost sciences that I've already given you, which is ancestor reverence, alchemy, symbology, as well as astronomy or astrology in ancient times. When you go to Genesis chapter 49, you're reading verse 1 to 4, you find that Jacob says, Reuben, you are my firstborn. That is literal and physical and correct and true in a physical sense. If that scripture ended there, you would understand that Jacob was telling us about his firstborn son, that his name was Reuben. But Jacob continues and says, my mighty, the first fruits of my strength, and preeminent in pride and preeminent in power, thou shalt not prevail. So what does that mean? My mighty is a verb, which means it's an action word, which pushes it up to the moral level or mental level. So how did Reuben use his morality? He abused his morality by ascending back to his father's couch, and therefore he was not given the firstborn role. So the one scripture, 1 or 2, 3 verses already changed and has already moved dynamically across the interpretation of scripture that Philo-Judaeus and many other Asian scholars like Origen, St. Augustine, and many priests in ancient Egypt would teach. So when it says preeminent in pride and preeminent in power, these are symbols. It's a symbol of something that Reuben represented when Jacob saw him. What was his position and where was his position and how do we know that position? We know that there is an astrological position of Reuben from the verse that says unstable as water. So this unstable as water, it does not mean that physically or literally Reuben is water. No. Reuben was a physical human being. The descendants of Reuben were physical and human beings, yes. Then we go to the next level and connect with the highest level of spiritual understanding with the science of the soul or astrology, which means that Reuben was what representing the Aquarius position of the cosmic movements or cosmic spheres, or the houses in which seasons, days, and years move through or across during the year. So Aquarius, that is the totem used by tribes in Africa, especially in Zimbabwe and South Africa. You find that the Mlambos, the Dziva, the Siziba, Ngwenya, Ntini, Mazibuko, these are all connected to Aquarius, connected to water, connected. So their characteristic and their spiritual orientation will likely involve them being arrogant, proud, as well as sexually free in their mentality. So when you go to Deuteronomy, you find that Moses expands on this and tells us that the Reubenites shall be many and be plenty. So you have to do what I've done with each of the tribe. You go to other tribes like the Simon and Levi, who are the stories, what they do, what they have, and you find their house, and you find their astrological sign, and you study those characteristics, and those are the spiritual orientations that these people could have. You go to Judah, he's like a lion. His house is Leo. So I'm showing you here the proof of what I've just said. And then my question is, my answer here is, the original zodiacal sign is found in Africa at a place called Dendera. And the Dendera is a Shona term for a bird. And this bird flies high up. It produces a specific sound, and it also eats and consumes the bread of the earth, the flesh. It's all symbolic. It's all true. It's all spiritual. It is very high. It's mysteries. I'm revealing mysteries here. So Dendera already, as I said before, existed before Abraham, existed before Jacob, existed before Moses. So Moses, when he was going through university in ancient Egypt, he studied this, he learned this, he absorbed this, and he was examined and he passed these subjects. So when you consider these 12 constellations of the zodiac and the 36 more stellar configurations that are undoubtedly founded in the heavens or on the dome in heaven, you understand that they are a spiritual identity of Bantus, and they are the source of the Bible and the proof of the inspiration of the Bible that is in your hand. And it is proof pictorially, which at night in a cloud, when there are no clouds, you can walk outside and look up to the sky, and when you see all those zodiacal signs, it's a proof that the Bible in your hand, the Torah in your hand, the ancient Egyptian mystery books that we study and we give here are all inspired by the Bantu. They were all crafted and written by the Bantu. By the way, the positions, the cosmic positions of these are so clear when you are in Dendera, when you are in Africa, not anywhere else on earth. Because again, we go to the structure and the direction of the pyramids. Now, let's proceed here and say, we want to look at the vital word Bantu. And they say, by now you must know a number of factors that we have already proved. We have said that the ancient Egyptians and the hieroglyphics were all created by the Bantus, and they are all a Bantu alphabet. We also say that the New Testament is a book plagiarized out of ancient Africa by sellout Bantu scholars. We also say that the ancient Egyptians, Ethiopians, Hebrews, tribes, or even Chinese and many others were all people of ancient Africa, and the proof of that is in the structures of the buildings that they gave the world. Now, therefore, it is critical at this juncture to point out that the term or the word Bantu is one of those very holy words, very sacred word, a word that is pregnant with meaning, a highly significant word. Worse off if you have got a totem and you are a Bantu, and also you are located and you were born in a specific place and a specific time. It means that your name and your essence is actually written, is a body locus or locus point, and therefore you carry in yourself something that is divine. if you are a Bantu, in ancient Bantu, you must learn and you must appreciate the mysteries of your ancestors. That is the signs of ancestor reverence. Now, in ancient Bantu speak or hieroglyphics, which we have studied in ancient Egypt, we know that there was a city that carried this name Bantu. It was in this city that rituals and rites and death and burial and resurrection ceremonies or mysteries were enacted yearly and annually, specifically by big and main actors like Horesu, so-called Horus, Osiris, so-called Ausari, so-called Osiris, and Isisu, so-called Isis. And therefore, when the Greeks conquered Africa, they renamed this city as Heliopolis, misdirecting a lot of people today. Our ancestors, however, gave this city the name Anu, so-called On in the Bible, in Genesis 41, verse 45. So, this place On, Anu, is made up of two critical components. It's made up of the first A or B or V, and then NU. We know that we Bantus explain many dialects. So Anu can be spelled as ANHU, can also be spelled as BANHU, can also be spelled with a V. We know that the interchangeableness of the words. We also that of the letters. We also know that NU can also be two, NTU or NHU. And also we know that NU or NWA is Noir. And the Noir, we know that it represents water. And the water, we know that it constitutes about 3/4 of the human body. And we also know that Ba is also the term for soul or for life or for the breath of life that was breathed in into the two by the Creator. So we've got the divine soul dwelling in the physical body, which is a physical substantiation of Bantu, of us, of you, or of any other human being. So the Bantu or Banu or Antu or Muntu, etc., in the book of Coming Forth by Day is representative or is represented by the bread of life, which is a symbol of earthly life, which is the Bantu. We also learn that the Hebrew scholars came along and learned about this powerful word identity and appropriated this word and founded a city which they named Bethany. And we know that the Y of that Bethany was put the Greeks when actually it was spelled as Bethanu, which is Bethanu, or which is a word that means the place of bread or the place of physical manifestation, which is the earth. Now, we know another name, Bethlehem, which means the house of Ham or the house of Egypt. There is also Joshua, the successor of Moses, who is a key to everything, who is also Joshua the son of Noah or Joshua the son of Anu. So the true African spiritual identity is codified inside us, yet the books that we call holy books carry this, since they were all crafted and copied from the mother book of all holy books, the African Bible. So in conclusion, I want to leave a riddle here. When you go to Revelation chapter 11 verse 8, you will find that speaking of the crucifixion of concerning the two witnesses that the beast will crucify and persecute, it says that Jesus was the Lord was crucified in Sodom and Egypt. Here is the question: was Jesus crucified in Sodom? Was he crucified in Egypt? What does this mean? Why does the church not deal with this? Has the church dealt with this correctly? Thank you for listening to this. We shall continue with this riddle of life. And because we have been handed the key to unlock these mysteries, we want to say, watch this space in future for more studies and more revelations of the higher truth in spirit. Thank you and goodbye.